Dr. Leo Vasquez stared out of the observation window of the Eon's Mercy, watching the barren, war-ravaged surface of Thal Exis below. The planet, once home to a thriving civilization, now lay in ruins, a symbol of the fragile peace that had been torn apart over the centuries. Leo's fingers drummed absent-mindedly on the console. Peace had always seemed like a dream, something humanity and the galaxy could never truly hold on to. It was a word tossed around by diplomats and politicians, but Leo had grown tired of it. He had been in this line of work long enough to know that peace was always temporary, always fragile, like a flicker of light in an ever-encroaching darkness. He was a diplomat, a mediator. His job was to talk, to negotiate, to bring about understanding between species that had no interest in peace. For years, Leo had believed that humanity had a unique ability to bridge these divides. He believed in the mission, believed in the Intergalactic Peace Accord, the organization he worked for a neutral body aimed at preventing conflicts between the galaxy's factions. But with every failed negotiation, every broken treaty, his belief had eroded, and now all that remained was the cold, hard reality of the job. His latest mission was no different from the others. A high-stakes assignment that, at first glance, seemed like an ordinary task: stop a war between two powerful alien factions, the Clithians and the Exorvations. The Clithians, with their advanced weaponry and territorial ambitions, had been pushing for dominance over the Exorvations for years. The Exorvations, on the other hand, were a proud species, desperate to defend their way of life. The two factions were on the brink of war, and Leo had been sent to mediate. But there was a twist. The solution, it seemed, was to eliminate one of their leaders, Selner, the enigmatic and controversial leader of the Clithians. Leo had never agreed with such methods. He'd spent his entire career trying to avoid violence, to find diplomatic solutions. But the mission was clear. The Exorvations had convinced his superiors that Selner was the source of the impending conflict, that his policies would bring about a devastating war. It was up to Leo to stop him. But as he sat alone in his quarters aboard the Eon's Mercy, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The ship's systems buzzed, and a flickering holographic message appeared before him. Leo leaned forward, recognizing the urgency in the message's source. It was encrypted, a level of security he had never seen before. The message didn't come from his superiors, nor the Exorvations. It wasn't even from a fellow diplomat or official. This was a message from Selner himself. The message began with a crackling voice. "Leo Vasquez, I know who you are. I know what you've been sent to do. And I am asking you to stop." Leo's heart skipped a beat. The Clithian leader knew he was here. How could that be? He'd been careful, precise, and the mission had been planned in secrecy. Selner continued, his voice steady but filled with a sense of urgency. "The truth is not as simple as you've been told. The war you think you're stopping is not the real danger. I need your help. The real enemy is older than anything you've ever encountered. It's a threat that could destroy everything, not just the Clithians and Exorvations, but all of us. I'll explain when you arrive. Trust no one else." Leo felt a chill crawl up his spine. For a moment, he couldn't move. The message ended, leaving a tense silence that echoed in his mind. A threat older than the war? Leo was trained to recognize the subtle manipulations of politicians and diplomats, but this felt different. Selner wasn't lying. Leo could feel it. The warning was too real, too desperate. Leo glanced out of the observation window again, the dark void of space stretching endlessly before him. His mission, as he understood it, had always been about saving the galaxy from war. But what if war wasn't the real problem? What if something far more dangerous was lurking, something that could wipe out entire civilizations? He stood up from his seat, pacing the small room as his thoughts raced. Should he continue with his mission? Should he assassinate Selner as he had been instructed? Or was there a deeper truth here that he had yet to uncover? The lines between right and wrong, friend and enemy, had always been blurry. Now, they seemed to blur even further. Leo had been a diplomat for most of his life, trained to negotiate, to understand different perspectives, to find a path through the chaos of the galaxy. But he had never been prepared for this. Never been prepared to question everything he had believed in. In that moment, something shifted inside him. The cold cynicism he had built over the years began to crack, replaced by a stirring sense of uncertainty and a faint glimmer of hope. Could it be that Selner was telling the truth? Was there a threat that they all failed to see? Or was this another game being played by the galaxy's powers, and Leo was just another pawn? Leo's fingers hovered over the console. The decision weighed heavily on him. He could continue with the assassination and uphold his mission, or he could investigate Selner's warning, take a chance on the unknown, and risk everything. The ship's systems hummed, urging him to make a decision. He reached for the communicator. "Prepare the landing gear," Leo ordered. His voice was steady, though uncertainty churned inside him. "I'm gonna meet Selner." As the Eon's Mercy descended toward the planet, Leo couldn't shake the feeling that he had just taken the first step into a much larger and more dangerous story than he had ever imagined. The Eon's Mercy landed with a soft thud on the hidden Clithian sanctuary, an isolated haven tucked deep in the mountains of Thalexis. Leo's boots hit the ground, the sound muffled by the dust swirling around the ship. He had been told that this place was a stronghold, a remote facility where Selner would meet him. But as Leo stepped out, the atmosphere felt strangely calm, almost too calm. The usual hum of conflict, the subtle, unspoken tension that defined so much of galactic diplomacy was absent. There was no sense of urgency here, no immediate threat. A figure approached through the shadows, tall and lean, cloaked in the distinct robes of the Clithian leader. Selner. Leo's expectations had been shaped by the stories, the rumors, and his own assumptions. He had imagined Selner as a cold, calculating, war-hungry dictator. Someone whose arrogance and aggression had brought the galaxy to the brink of destruction. Instead, what he saw was a man whose face was weary, haunted by a history that didn't align with the bloodthirsty image Leo had been given. "You're not what I expected," Leo said cautiously, his voice betraying both surprise and skepticism. Selner's eyes, sharp and calculating, met Leo's with an intensity that made the diplomat take a small step back. "Few are. The galaxy has a way of twisting stories, bending truth to fit the narrative it wants. I am not the monster you've been told I am, Leo Vasquez. But I suppose it doesn't matter now." His voice was heavy with resignation, as though he had already made peace with whatever path he would walk next. Leo's mind raced, but he stayed silent, trying to read the Clithian leader. What was this man hiding? What was he not saying? "I know why you've come," Selner continued, his voice lowering to a near whisper. "You were sent to kill me, to stop the Clithians from provoking a war with the Exorvations. But you've been lied to." The words hit Leo like a punch to the gut. He'd spent months preparing for this mission. All the intel, all the briefings, the political maneuvering, it had led him to this moment. And now, here was Selner, claiming that everything Leo had believed was false. Lied to? By whom? Leo asked, though a sinking feeling was already beginning to settle in his chest. "The Exorvations, for one," Selner said, his voice hardening. "But there's more. There's a deeper darkness at play. The real threat is not the Exorvations. It's something far worse. Something that has been hidden from you all. Something ancient." Leo's mind whirled. Ancient? Hidden? What was Selner talking about? The Clithian leader stepped forward, his hand sweeping out toward the horizon, where the faint outline of a distant city shimmered under the light of a dying sun. "The Nyrak," Selner whispered. "The ancient race that nearly destroyed the galaxy. They are coming back." The name sent a chill down Leo's spine. The Nyrak. Few knew the full history of the Nyrak, only that they had been an unstoppable force, capable of wiping out entire star systems. Legends spoke of their return, but they were always dismissed as myth, stories meant to scare children. But now, Selner's words had weight. His voice was filled with a quiet dread, as though speaking the name of the Nyrak made them more real, more dangerous. "I've fought my entire life to keep my people safe," Selner continued, his eyes growing distant. "I've pushed the Clithians toward war with the Exorvations, not because I wanted it, but because I needed to prepare us. We are the last line of defense against the Nyrak. And the Exorvations. They have unknowingly allied themselves with rogue Nyrak factions. They don't even realize it. They're being manipulated. Leo's stomach twisted. This was too much. His entire mission had been based on a lie. Everything he had been told about the Clithians, the Exorvations, even the war, it was all a smokescreen, a distraction from the real threat. You're saying that the Exorvations are unknowingly working with the Nyrak? Leo asked, trying to process it all. Selner nodded. Yes, the Exorvations are scared. They've been told that the Clithians are their greatest enemy, that we will destroy them if we're allowed to grow too strong. They've made deals with the Nyrak to secure their survival, not realizing they're playing into the Nyrak's hand. Leo felt a cold fury rising within him. How could this be happening? The galaxy, the factions, everything he had worked for it was all being manipulated by forces beyond his comprehension. Before he could respond, a sudden beep from his communicator interrupted the tense silence. It was an encrypted message. The voice on the other end was distorted, but Leo recognized it instantly. Leo, you need to listen carefully. We've discovered the truth about your mission. It wasn't to stop a war. It was to eliminate Selner before he could expose the Nyrak. Your government has been working with the Exorvations. They've been planning to use the Nyrak to decimate the Clithians, to rid themselves of a threat that might unravel their power. They've been using you as a pawn in this game. Leo's blood ran cold. His own government? Complicit in this? The feeling of betrayal was overwhelming. Everything he had been doing, every step he had taken, had been part of a much larger political scheme. A scheme he hadn't even known he was a part of. Selner, too, had been listening. His face was grim, but there was something else in his eyes, understanding, perhaps. He had known this would come. Your government has lied to you, Leo, Selner said quietly. You were never sent to stop the war. You were sent to silence me. Because I found the truth. Leo stood there, unable to speak, his mind struggling to catch up with the unfolding reality. The conspiracy was vast, and his role in it was something he couldn't even fathom. And just as Leo thought things couldn't get worse, the situation took another twist. A cryptic message appeared on his console. It was from an alien known only as the Oracle. The message was short, yet its implications were deep. The cosmic shift is coming. You will soon know the truth of your existence. But remember, not all enemies are what they seem. Beware of the hands that guide you. Leo's heart raced. Who was the Oracle? And what did the message mean? His mind was spinning, and as the weight of everything pressed down on him, he realized that his entire mission had turned into something far larger than he had ever imagined. It wasn't just a war between species anymore. It was about something much deeper, something that could change the entire course of the galaxy. He looked at Selner, who nodded gravely. It's not just about us anymore, Leo. It's about everyone. We need to stop the Nyrak before it's too late. The weight of the galaxy was now on Leo's shoulders. He wasn't sure how to move forward, but he knew one thing for sure. His mission had just shifted, and the stakes were far higher than he could have ever imagined. The revelation that the Nyrak were not the first advanced species to dominate the galaxy shook Leo to his core. Every step he took alongside Selner in the hidden Clithian sanctuaries seemed to peel back more layers of the universe's forgotten history, revealing unsettling truths. The more they uncovered, the more Leo realized that everything he had believed about humanity's origins and the role humanity played in the galaxy was not what it seemed. It started with the artifacts they had found, remnants of a civilization older than the Nyrak, scattered across various planets. These ancient relics, once thought to be remnants of long-lost species, pointed to something much darker. Selner's quiet voice echoed in Leo's mind as they stood before a massive tablet inscribed with symbols that no human had ever deciphered before. The Nyrak were not the creators of the galaxy's power. They merely continued the work of those who came before them. Selner's voice was low, as though afraid to even speak the truth out loud. Leo felt a strange sense of foreboding wash over him. What did this mean for humanity? The question lingered in the air as they pored over the mysterious writings. Ancient civilizations, it seemed, had experimented with life on a scale beyond anything Leo could have imagined. The artifacts depicted strange, humanoid beings with human-like features, yet clearly alien in origin. The more Leo stared at them, the more he felt the creeping realization sink in. Humanity wasn't just a byproduct of evolution. The evidence suggested that humanity's rise to power had been influenced, or perhaps even engineered, by the Nirak themselves. "Are you saying humans are part of the Nirak's legacy?" Leo asked, barely able to voice the thought, but unable to push it away. His words sounded almost hollow in the vastness of the room. Selner nodded, his expression grim. Yes, the Nirak, in their earliest stages, sought to create a perfect species. Humanity may have been one of their experiments, a byproduct of their desire to craft something that could rival their own power. The rise of your people, your civilization, might have been nothing more than an unintended result of their influence. The thought struck Leo like a physical blow. The very foundation of everything he had ever believed about humanity's superiority, its unique place in the galaxy, was crumbling. The pride he had carried for his species, the belief that humans were special, that their ability to form peace could change the galaxy, was built on a lie. He had always believed that humans were the last great hope, the bridge between warring factions, the keepers of peace. But what if all of that was part of a grand design crafted by a species that had now returned to destroy everything? He turned away from the artifact, his breath coming in short bursts. His entire life, everything he had fought for, now felt like it had been manipulated from the start. Selner placed a hand on his shoulder, grounding him. "I understand what you're feeling, Leo. This isn't easy. But the truth is, you cannot escape this reality. Humanity is not as unique as you've been led to believe. But that doesn't mean it is doomed. You must decide what to do with this truth." Leo looked at Selner, his mind in turmoil. Could he continue to serve humanity, knowing they had been complicit in a history that had led to the return of the Nirak? If humanity's power was built on the manipulation of ancient forces, how could he fight for it with a clear conscience? It was then that Leo realized he was faced with a choice between loyalty and truth. Could he side with a government that had kept him in the dark, that had secretly worked with the Exervations and the Nirak to consolidate their power? Or could he join forces with Selner, a Clithian he had been taught to distrust, and fight against the forces that sought to annihilate not only their civilizations, but everything in the galaxy? The weight of the decision threatened to crush him. If he remained loyal to humanity, he would be complicit in the destruction of every species he had once believed to be allies. But if he chose to align himself with Selner and the Clithians, it meant breaking every bond he had ever known. It would mean betraying everything he had ever worked for, the peace he had strived for, the ideals of unity, of diplomacy. But there was something else, something deeper. As they worked together to uncover the truth, Leo began to feel a shift inside himself. It wasn't just about politics anymore. It wasn't just about the mission or the galaxy's future. It was about the bond he had formed with Selner, their partnership born out of necessity. In moments of quiet reflection, in the heat of battle, Leo found himself drawn to Selner in ways he couldn't explain. It was not just admiration or respect. It was something deeper, more personal. As the days wore on, their alliance moved beyond pragmatism. There were moments when their hands brushed against each other, fleeting touches that lingered longer than necessary. Leo had always kept his emotions at bay, always maintaining the cool, detached professionalism of a diplomat. But now, in the midst of chaos, he couldn't deny the growing connection between them. It was a dangerous alliance, a forbidden one, but it was undeniable. Then, everything shattered. Leo's betrayal was revealed to his superiors. The encrypted message came in late at night, its contents clear and devastating. Leo's actions, his investigations, his alliance with Selner had been discovered. He was branded a traitor, a rogue agent of the government. Without warning, his own people attempted to have him executed. Leo was forced to flee, using every ounce of his training to evade the government's hunters. Selner was there by his side, helping him escape the clutches of his former allies. The man he had once been sent to kill had become his only true ally, his only hope. In the midst of their escape, Selnar's voice was steady, though tinged with an emotion Leo hadn't heard before. "You're not alone, Leo. We'll fight this together. We'll stop the Nyrak, and we'll stop the forces manipulating our worlds." Leo's heart thundered in his chest. The bond between them was no longer just political. It had evolved into something more: a shared cause, a shared understanding. And in that moment, Leo knew that he would not be fighting alone. He would fight for Selnar, for the galaxy, for a chance at redemption. But just as they thought they had found a safe haven, a new nightmare descended. The Nyrak, fully awakened, launched a devastating assault on the galaxy's most populous worlds. Destruction swept across planets once thought to be safe. The Nyrak had returned, and their fury was unmatched. Leo and Selnar, now fugitives, realized that their only chance for survival was to unite the galaxy's fractured factions, Clithians, Exorvations, and humanity against the common enemy. But the task seemed impossible. The prejudices, the decades of war, and the distrust between species ran deep. But the bond between Leo and Selnar represented something new, a symbol of unity that had never existed before. As the Nyrak advance, Leo realized the true cost of their alliance. It was no longer just about stopping the Nyrak. It was about breaking down the walls that divided them and building a new galaxy from the ashes of the old. Their love, though forbidden, was the hope the galaxy needed, the last flicker of light in the darkness. The Nyrak's forces converged on the core systems. The galaxy's last hope rested in the hands of Leo and Selnar. The battle had reached a fever pitch. Starships, once symbols of peace and diplomacy, now lined up in war formations, ready to make a stand against an enemy unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The coalition of alien factions, Clithians, Exorvations, and humans had joined forces, but it was clear that without a decisive weapon, they were doomed. The Nyrak's sheer power was overwhelming, their ancient technology devastating. But Leo and Selnar knew something the rest of the galaxy didn't. The true weapon was not a fleet of warships, nor was it a weapon of mass destruction. It was an artifact, an ancient piece of technology that had once been used by the Nyrak in their earliest experiments, a technology tied to humanity's origins. A forgotten relic, hidden away in the ruins of a long-abandoned world. "We've been fighting the wrong battle," Selnar said, his voice steady but with an edge of urgency. The Nyrak's strength comes from their ability to manipulate consciousness, ours and their own. This artifact, it holds the key to defeating them. But only if we can unlock its full potential. Leo, heart heavy with the knowledge of what this would cost, looked at Selnar. They had come so far, from enemies to allies, from allies to something deeper, something forbidden. He knew what he was about to do was irreversible. But there was no choice now. The galaxy was teetering on the brink, and to stop the Nyrak, he would need to make the ultimate sacrifice. The artifact was located in a distant, crumbling temple on the edge of the galaxy, a place few dared to go. Once inside, Leo and Selnar activated the device, but it didn't respond the way they expected. It was as if the artifact was waiting for something, someone who had been touched by both humanity and the Nyrak. Leo felt a strange pull toward it. The moment his hand touched the artifact, his body began to pulse with energy, an overwhelming surge that forced him to his knees. Selnar stood by, unable to help as Leo was consumed by the ancient power. The fusion of human and Nyrak technology began to alter him on a molecular level. His mind raced as memories and emotions, both alien and familiar, intertwined in a chaotic storm. His heart pounded, and his breath was shallow. In that instant, Leo understood. The Nyrak had not created humanity, but humanity had been shaped by them, created to be something that could challenge their power, yet never fully understand their true purpose. The artifact was a bridge, a way to connect them to the power of the Nyrak and bend it to their will. When the process ended, Leo was no longer the man who'd first arrived in this war-torn galaxy. He was something different, something both human and alien. His appearance was slightly altered, his skin glowing faintly, his eyes shimmering with an otherworldly light. He could feel the power coursing through him, a raw energy that made him both stronger and more vulnerable than ever before. Selner looked at him with awe, but also with fear. "Leo, what have you become?" Leo took a breath, steadying himself. "I'm still me. But I'm more than I was." With the power of the artifact now inside him, Leo and Selner led the Coalition's final assault against the Nyrak. It was not an easy victory. The Nyrak were relentless, their attacks devastating. But with Leo's newfound abilities, they were able to disrupt the Nyrak's consciousness manipulation and weaken their forces. The ancient technology that once made the Nyrak nearly unstoppable had been turned against them. In the final moments of the battle, the Nyrak forces crumbled. The remaining ships, once full of fearsome warriors, retreated into the void, defeated. The galaxy had been saved, but at a price far higher than anyone had anticipated. Leo stood at the center of the battlefield, his body still humming with the energy of the artifact. The galaxy was safe, but he was no longer the man who had set out to mediate peace. He was something new, something altered. Selner approached him, his expression unreadable. "You've done it, Leo. We've saved the galaxy." Leo nodded, but his heart was heavy. The victory felt hollow. The cost had been immense. Not only had he given up his humanity, but he had also lost the chance to return to Earth, to ever see his people again. The bridge between human and Nyrak power had been crossed, and there was no going back. "We've saved the galaxy," Leo said, his voice distant. "But I can't go home. I'm not the man I was." Selner placed a hand on his shoulder, a silent gesture of solidarity. "You're still you, Leo. Maybe more than ever before." As the two of them stood amidst the wreckage, watching the stars that had once seemed so distant, the weight of their actions settled in. The galaxy was saved, but it was a new galaxy, one where old prejudices no longer held sway, where the very idea of humanity's superiority had been shattered. The alliance between Leo and Selner had not only transformed their species, but had also created a new reality, one where the lines between alien and human were no longer so clear. Their bond, born of necessity and forged in the fire of war, had evolved into something more. They had learned to see each other not as enemies, but as equals. They had loved, even when their love seemed impossible. But in the quiet aftermath of the battle, as the galaxy began to rebuild, Leo couldn't help but wonder what the future held for them. Could love truly bridge the gap between species, between the deep divides of history and politics? Or were they simply the last remnants of an old era that would never truly be understood? As he turned to Selner, the questions lingered. "What does it mean now?" Leo asked softly. "What is humanity's place in the galaxy?" Selner's gaze met his, filled with understanding, but also uncertainty. "Perhaps it means we are part of something bigger now, Leo. Not just humans or Clithians, but something universal." But for the first time in a long time, Leo felt a sense of peace, albeit a bittersweet one. The galaxy had changed, and with it, the nature of what it meant to be human. And as they gazed at the stars from their new home, Leo knew that, for better or worse, their love had been the key to creating a new future, one where the boundaries of species, politics, and history no longer defined their fate.